I woke up to the sound of laughter, cruel, mocking laughter that echoed through my bedroom window at 4 in the morning. When I stumbled to the front door and flipped on the porch light, my stomach dropped. My yard looked like a crime scene designed by vindictive children. Garbage was smeared across the porch railings, eggshells dripped from the mailbox, and someone had spray-painted "loser" in neon orange across my truck's windshield. My name is Jack Callahan, and I'm a 43-year-old handyman in Millbrook, Maine, a town where everyone knows your business before you do, and gossip spreads faster than black ice on Route 9. I've lived in this modest craftsman house for 15 years, kept the lawn trimmed, paid my taxes, and minded my own business. But apparently, minding your own business doesn't protect you from your ex-wife's psychotic revenge fantasies. I stood there in my boxers and a ratty Red Sox t-shirt, staring at the destruction, and thought, if karma was real, Elise would already be living in a tent behind Walmart. "Looks like you pissed off the wrong person, Jackie boy." Mrs. Farley's cackle cut through the pre-dawn darkness. My 70-year-old neighbor was already on her porch, coffee mug in hand, watching the show like it was primetime entertainment. "Thanks for the insight, Mrs. Farley," I muttered, grabbing the garden hose. The divorce had been finalized 6 months ago. Elise got the savings, I got the house and the debt. Fair? Not even close. But the judge had been impressed by Elise's HR manager salary and her lawyer's expensive suit. My court-appointed attorney had shown up looking like he'd slept in his car. Elise had moved into one of those cookie-cutter townhouses in the new development on the east side, what locals called McMansion Row. She'd also moved in her new boyfriend, Brandon Fitch, a real estate agent who drove a BMW and wore too much cologne. The kind of guy who called everyone chief and thought a firm handshake could substitute for a personality. I'd seen them together at the supermarket once, Elise laughing at something Brandon said, her hand on his chest. She'd looked right through me like I was a stranger. 15 years of marriage, gone like morning fog. But this vandalism was a new low. I spent the next 2 hours cleaning up the mess, scrubbing paint off my truck with mineral spirits until my hands ached. The sun was coming up when I remembered the security camera I'd installed last week, a cheap wireless model I'd picked up at the hardware store after someone stole my toolbox from the garage. Inside, I pulled up the footage on my laptop, scrolling through the grainy night vision recording. At 3:47 a.m., a figure appeared. Masked, wearing dark clothes, moving with purpose. They knew where to avoid the motion sensor lights. They'd done their homework. I watched the figure dump garbage, spray paint, throw eggs with practiced aim. Then, as they turned to leave, the camera caught something, a distinctive limp favoring the left leg. I'd seen that walk before. Brandon Fitch had torn his ACL playing weekend warrior basketball 6 months ago. Elise had posted about it on Facebook, complete with photos of him on crutches and a long caption about supporting my man through recovery. I sat back in my chair, a cold smile spreading across my face. "Rookie mistake, Brandon," I whispered to the empty room. The Dead End was the kind of bar where the floor stuck to your shoes and the jukebox only played songs from before 1995. It was also the best place in Millbrook to gather intelligence. Every secret, every scandal, every piece of dirty laundry eventually made its way to the Dead End's scarred wooden bar. Mick Sullivan, the bartender and my old army buddy, was wiping down glasses when I walked in that evening. He took one look at my face and poured 2 fingers of whiskey without asking. "Heard about your yard," Mick said, his Boston accent thick as chowder. "Mrs. Farley's been telling everyone at the post office." "Of course she has." I downed the whiskey, feeling it burn a path to my stomach. "What else is she saying?" Mick leaned in, lowering his voice even though the bar was nearly empty. "She's saying your ex's boyfriend was bragging about it here last night. Said you deserved worse for being such a deadbeat during the divorce." My jaw clenched. "Brandon was here? Bragging?" "Not just bragging. He bought around for the house. Told everyone you were a loser who couldn't hold down a real job or keep a woman satisfied." Mick's expression darkened. "I would have kicked him out, but the owner was working. You know how Tony is about paying customers." I nodded slowly, processing this information. Brandon wasn't just vandalizing my property, he was destroying my reputation. In a town like Millbrook, reputation was currency. Lose that, and you lose your livelihood. No one hires a handyman they don't trust. "I need a favor," I said. Mick grinned. "I was hoping you'd say that." The next morning, I drove to the high school and found Sid Morrison in the parking lot working on his beat-up Honda Civic. Sid was 17, a tech genius who'd helped me install smart home systems for clients. He could hack a Ring doorbell in his sleep. "Mr. Callahan," Sid said, wiping grease from his hands. "What's up?" "I need to upgrade my security system. Professional grade, multiple cameras, motion sensors, the works, and I need it done quietly." Sid's eyes lit up. He loved a challenge. "How quiet?" "Invisible. I want to catch someone in the act." "Someone like your ex's boyfriend?" Sid asked, then caught my expression. "Dude, everyone knows about your yard. It's all over Instagram." I closed my eyes. Of course it was. "Can you help me or not?" "Hell yeah, I can help you. This is going to be epic." Over the next 3 days, Sid and I transformed my property into a surveillance fortress. We installed cameras in the eaves, motion sensors along the fence line, and a sophisticated DVR system that uploaded directly to cloud storage. We set up dummy cameras too, obvious ones that would draw attention while the real cameras watched from better angles. I also set up bait. In my garage, visible through the window, I placed a cardboard box labeled "Divorce Files, Financial Records" in thick black marker. It was filled with old tax returns and junk mail, but from outside it looked valuable. Then I waited. On the fourth night at 2:17 a.m., my phone buzzed with a motion alert. I was already awake, sitting in my darkened living room with a thermos of coffee and a baseball bat. Not that I planned to use the bat, but it made me feel better. The camera feed showed a figure approaching the garage. Same build, same limp. Brandon Fitch, right on schedule. I watched him jimmy the garage window. Poorly, I might add. For a real estate agent, he had no idea how locks actually worked. It took him 5 minutes to get the window open, and by then I'd moved into position. I'd spent the afternoon rigging the garage with surprises. Nothing illegal, nothing dangerous, just psychological warfare. A motion-activated speaker system connected to my phone, LED lights on timers, and a carefully placed garden hose. Brandon dropped through the window, landing with a grunt. He pulled out his phone, using it as a flashlight as he crept toward the box. I triggered the first surprise. The LED lights blazed to life, flooding the garage with blinding white light. Brandon yelped, covering his eyes. Then the speakers kicked in, a recording of police radio chatter I'd downloaded, mixed with barking dogs. Brandon spun around, panicked, looking for the source. "What the hell?" I triggered the garden hose, which I'd mounted on the ceiling. Cold water sprayed down, soaking him. Brandon screamed, actually screamed, and bolted for the window. In his panic, he dropped his phone and his wallet. I waited until he'd scrambled through the window and disappeared into the night before I turned on the lights and examined his wallet. Inside his driver's license, 3 credit cards, and a handwritten note on dead-end napkin paper. The note read, "Tuesday night, 2 a.m., garage window, get the box. E. E for Elise." I took photos of everything, then uploaded them to my secure cloud storage. Evidence. Beautiful, incriminating evidence. My phone rang. It was Mick. "You watching the show?" he asked. "Front row seat. He just ran past my house like his buttocks was on fire." Mick's laughter boomed through the speaker. "This is the best thing that's happened in Millbrook since the mayor's wife ran off with the youth pastor." I stared at the note, at Elise's handwriting, the same handwriting I'd seen on birthday cards and grocery lists for 15 years. "Mick," I said quietly, "the gloves are coming off." Revenge, I'd learned, was best served with precision and patience. I wasn't interested in vandalism or violence. I wanted something better. I wanted them to destroy themselves. The next morning, I printed out high-resolution photos from the security footage. Brandon's face was clearly visible in several frames, along with timestamps and GPS coordinates. I made copies, sealed them in an envelope, and mailed them to Elisa's office with a simple note. "Your boyfriend has an interesting hobby." Then I went to work on Brandon's precious BMW. I'd done enough auto repair to know how to make someone's life miserable without causing actual damage. At 3 a.m., I parked 2 blocks from Elisa's townhouse and walked quietly to where Brandon's BMW sat in the driveway, gleaming under the streetlight. I'd brought a bag of raw shrimp from the grocery store, the cheap kind that smelled like low tide. I removed the cabin air filter and stuffed the shrimp inside the ventilation system, then replaced the filter. In 3 days, when the shrimp started rotting in the summer heat, Brandon's car would smell like a dumpster behind a seafood restaurant. The smell would be almost impossible to locate and even harder to remove. I also loosened his valve stem caps, not enough to cause a flat, just enough to create a slow leak that would need constant attention. Small things, annoying things, the kind of things that accumulate and drive a person crazy. 2 days later, I was at the hardware store when I ran into Janine Holloway, Elise's best friend since college. Janine was one of those people who couldn't keep a secret if her life depended on it. She was also a heavy drinker who got chatty after 2 glasses of wine. "Jack," she said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "I heard about your yard. That's just terrible." Yeah, it was quite a mess. I kept my voice neutral, friendly even. "How's Elise doing?" Janine glanced around, then leaned in conspiratorially. "Between you and me, she's stressed. Work is crazy, and Brandon's been acting paranoid. He thinks someone's following him." "Really?" I raised my eyebrows. "That's concerning." "I know, right? And his car smells awful, like something died in it. He's taken it to 3 mechanics and nobody can figure it out." Janine giggled. "Elise is about ready to make him park it on the street." I made sympathetic noises while mentally celebrating. "Well, I hope things get better for them." "You're sweet, Jack. I always told Elise she gave up too easily on you." Janine patted my arm. "You know, she's still angry about the divorce. She thinks you turned the judge against her." "I didn't have to. Her lawyer did that by being an arrogant, foolish person." Janine laughed, then caught herself. "I shouldn't say this, but the vandalism. That was her idea. She told Brandon it would teach you a lesson. I told her it was childish, but she wouldn't listen. There it was, confirmation from a third party. I made sure to look surprised and hurt. Elise did that? Why? She's convinced you hid money during the divorce. She thinks you're living some secret rich life while she's struggling." Janine rolled her eyes. "I've seen your house, Jack. You're not exactly living like an illegal substance lord." We chatted for a few more minutes, then parted ways. As soon as I got to my truck, I called Mick. "I need you to do something for me," I said. "Next time Brandon comes into the dead end, I want you to serve him drinks and keep him talking. Record everything he says about me. Can you do that?" "Can I record in rude person being in rude person?" "Jack, it's like you don't even know me." Brandon came into the dead end on Friday night, right on schedule. Mick texted me updates throughout the evening as Brandon got progressively drunker and more talkative. By 10 p.m., Brandon was on his 5th beer and telling anyone who'd listen about that loser Jack Callahan and how he'd shown him who's boss by trashing his yard. Mick's phone, propped behind the bar, captured every word. At midnight, I received a video file. 20 minutes of Brandon bragging about the vandalism, laughing about how I'd never figure out who did it, and making crude comments about Elise that would have made a sailor blush. I watched the video 3 times, my anger building with each viewing. Brandon wasn't just a vandal. He was an aggressor who enjoyed humiliating people. And Elise had sicked him on me like a trained attack dog. Time to turn the tables. Saturday morning, I drove to the supermarket where I knew Brandon did his weekly shopping. He always went at 9 a.m., always parked in the same spot near the entrance. I'd learned his patterns over the past 2 weeks. I arrived at 8:30 and waited in my truck, sipping coffee and watching the parking lot fill up. At 9:03, Brandon's BMW pulled in, trailing a faint odor of decay even with the windows up. He parked, got out, and headed into the store. I waited 5 minutes, then approached his car. I'd brought a large manila envelope, which I tucked under his windshield wiper. Inside, printed screenshots from the security footage, stills from Mick's bar video, and a note. The note read, "I know what you did. The police will too. You have 24 hours to make this right or everyone sees these photos. A concerned citizen." I was back in my truck before Brandon emerged from the store pushing a cart full of groceries. I watched through binoculars as he spotted the envelope, opened it, and went pale. His groceries forgotten, he pulled out his phone and made a frantic call. To Elise, I assumed. That afternoon, Elise called me for the first time in 6 months. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" she demanded, her voice shrill. "Hello to you too, Elise. I'm doing great. Thanks for asking." "Don't play games with me, Jack. I know you sent that envelope to Brandon." "I have no idea what you're talking about." I kept my voice calm, almost bored. "But if someone's sending Brandon threatening letters, maybe he should think about why. You can't prove anything. Neither can you. But here's the thing, Elise. I don't have to prove anything. I just have to make sure the right people see the right evidence at the right time. You taught me that during the divorce, remember? When your lawyer buried me in paperwork and legal fees?" Silence on the other end. Then, "This isn't over." "You're right, it's not. But it will be soon. And when it is, you're going to wish you'd left me alone." I hung up before she could respond. Millbrook's annual Lobster Fest was the social event of the summer. A weekend carnival on the waterfront with food vendors, live music, and enough gossip to fuel a reality TV show. Everyone attended, from the mayor to the high school kids looking for trouble. I'd been planning for Lobster Fest since the day I found Brandon's wallet in my garage. The festival opened on Saturday at noon. By 1 p.m., the waterfront was packed with people eating lobster rolls, drinking beer, and pretending to enjoy the local band's off-key cover of Sweet Caroline. I'd spent the previous week carefully planting seeds, a word here, a hint there, just enough to make people curious. Mrs. Farley, bless her gossipy heart, had been particularly helpful in spreading rumors about suspicious activity at Elise's townhouse. At 2 p.m., I found Janine near the beer garden, already on her third drink. She was with a group of women I recognized from Elise's social circle, the kind of people who smiled to your face and sharpened their knives behind your back. "Jack," Janine waved me over, her cheeks flushed. "Come have a drink." "Thanks, but I'm driving," I smiled at the group. "How's everyone doing?" They made small talk, asking about my business, complimenting my truck. I played the role of friendly ex-husband, humble and self-deprecating. Then Janine, right on cue, said, "Have you seen Elise yet? She's here with Brandon." "I haven't. Are they having a good time?" "I guess. Though Brandon's been acting weird all week. Super paranoid. Elise thinks he's having a breakdown or something." One of the other women, a blonde named Stephanie, leaned in. "I heard he got caught doing something illegal. My cousin works at the police station, and she said there's an investigation." This was news to me, but I filed it away. "Really? That's concerning." "I also heard," Stephanie continued, lowering her voice, "that someone has video of him vandalizing property. Like, clear evidence?" I raised my eyebrows. "Where did you hear that?" "Facebook. Someone posted about it in the Millbrook Community Watch Group. They didn't say who he vandalized, but people are speculating." Perfect. My anonymous post from a burner account was spreading faster than I'd hoped. Janine pulled out her phone, scrolling through Facebook. "Oh my God, you're right. Look at this." She held up her phone, showing a grainy but recognizable screenshot from my security footage. Brandon climbing through the garage window. The post had over 200 comments and counting. "That's terrible," I said, keeping my face neutral. "I hope they catch whoever did it." At 3 p.m., I spotted Elise and Brandon near the lobster roll stand. Elise looked stressed, her jaw tight, while Brandon kept glancing around like he expected the police to appear at any moment. I approached them casually, carrying a lemonade. "Elise? Brandon?" I nodded politely. "Nice day for the festival." Elise's eyes narrowed. "What do you want, Jack?" "Just being friendly. We're all adults here, right?" I turned to Brandon. "How's the BMW running? I heard you've been having some trouble with it." Brandon's face went red. "What did you do to my car?" "Me? Nothing. Why would I do anything to your car?" I smiled innocently. "Though I did hear it smells pretty bad. Might want to check for dead animals in the engine compartment. Happens more often than you'd think." "You son of a—" "Brandon." Elise grabbed his arm. "Not here." But Brandon was too angry, too drunk, too stupid to listen. He stepped forward, jabbing a finger at my chest. "I know you're behind all this. The photos, the Facebook posts, everything. You're trying to ruin my life." "Your life?" I laughed, a cold sound. "Brandon, you ruined your own life when you decided to vandalize my property and brag about it at the dead end. You did that, not me. You can't prove anything." "Actually, I can." I pulled out my phone, opening the video file from Mick's bar. "I have 20 minutes of you confessing to vandalism. I have security footage of you breaking into my garage. I have your wallet, which you dropped during your little crime spree. And I have a note, in Elise's handwriting, telling you when and how to do it." The color drained from Elise's face. "That's right," I continued, my voice low and hard. "I have everything. And in about—" I checked my watch. 5 minutes. That video is going to be posted to every social media group in Millbrook. The community watch group, the town Facebook page, the local news tip line. Everyone is going to see what you did. Everyone is going to know what kind of people you really are." "You wouldn't dare," Elise whispered. "Watch me." I turned and walked away, leaving them standing there in shock. Behind me, I heard Elise start to cry and Brandon start to swear. At 3:05 p.m., Mick posted the video from an anonymous account. By 3:30, it had been shared over 500 times. By 4 p.m., half the people at Lobster Fest were watching it on their phones, pointing at Brandon and whispering. The social nightmare had begun. Sunday morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. Most were from people I barely knew, asking if I was okay and offering support. A few were from former friends who'd ghosted me after the divorce, suddenly wanting to reconnect. One text was from Detective Paul Harrow, my neighbor, and the closest thing Millbrook had to a real detective. Need to talk to you about the video. Stop by the station when you can. I drove to the police station at 10 a.m., bringing copies of all my evidence in a neat folder. Detective Harrow was waiting in his office, a coffee-stained mug in front of him and reading glasses perched on his nose. "Jack," he gestured to a chair. "Sit." I sat. "So," Harrow said, leaning back in his chair, "you want to tell me what's been going on?" I laid out everything, the vandalism, the investigation, the evidence I'd gathered. I showed him the security footage, the bar video, the note from Elise, and Brandon's wallet. I explained my methods, careful to emphasize that I hadn't done anything illegal. Harrow listened without interrupting, his expression unreadable. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "You know what this looks like?" he finally said. "Justice? Vigilante justice. Which is still vigilante, Jack. You should have come to me first. Would you have done anything? Would you have investigated based on my suspicions? Or would you have told me to let it go and move on?" Harrow sighed. "Probably the latter, but that doesn't make what you did right." "Maybe not. But it worked." "Yeah, it worked. Brandon Fitch is facing criminal charges for vandalism and breaking and entering. Elise could be charged as an accomplice. Their reputations are destroyed, and they're probably going to leave town." Harrow leaned forward. "But you made a lot of enemies doing this, Jack. People don't like vigilantes, even when they're right. People didn't like me anyway. At least now they respect me." Harrow smiled slightly. "Fair point. For what it's worth, I'm not going to charge you with anything. You stayed within the law, barely, and you documented everything properly. But be careful. Revenge has a way of coming back around. I'll take my chances." That afternoon, I received a visit from someone I hadn't expected, Brandon's wife. Her name was Rachel Fitch, and she lived in Portland with their 2 kids. Brandon had failed to mention during his affair with Elise that he was still legally married. Rachel was tall, blonde, and furious. She stood on my porch with her arms crossed, her jaw set. "You're Jack Callahan?" "That's me." "I'm Rachel Fitch, Brandon's wife." "His actual legal wife." I blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" "Brandon and I have been married for 12 years. We're separated but not divorced, which means his relationship with your ex-wife is cheating." Rachel's smile was sharp. "I came to thank you for exposing him. I've been trying to prove he's unfit for custody, and your video just gave me everything I need." You're welcome." "I also wanted to give you this." She handed me a manila envelope. "It's a copy of Brandon's financial records. Turns out he's been hiding assets from me during our separation. There's also evidence that he's been committing real estate fraud, lying about property values to inflate his commissions. I thought you might find it interesting." I opened the envelope, scanning the documents inside. Bank statements, emails, contracts, all showing a pattern of deception and illegal activity. "Why are you giving this to me?" "Because Brandon destroyed my life, and now I'm returning the favor. I've already sent copies to the State Real Estate Board and the IRS, but I thought you might want to share them with your ex-wife. Let her know exactly who she's been sleeping with." Rachel turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing. Brandon's been telling people you're dangerous, that you threatened him. I wanted you to know I don't believe that. I think you're just a guy who got pushed too far and finally pushed back. Good luck, Mr. Callahan." She walked to her car and drove away, leaving me standing on the porch with a folder full of ammunition. Monday evening, I drove to Elise's townhouse. Her car was in the driveway, but Brandon's BMW was gone. Good. I wanted to talk to her alone. She answered the door in yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. Without makeup, she looked older, tired. She looked like the woman I'd married 20 years ago, before ambition and resentment had hardened her. "What do you want, Jack?" "To talk. 5 minutes, that's all." She hesitated, then stepped aside. "Fine, but make it quick." The townhouse was decorated in that generic modern style. Gray walls, white furniture, meaningless inspirational quotes in frames. It looked like a hotel lobby. There was nothing personal, nothing warm, nothing that said home. We sat in the living room, an awkward silence stretching between us. "I'm sorry," Elise finally said. "For the vandalism, for everything. I was angry and I made bad choices." You made calculated choices. There's a difference. You're right, I did. She looked at her hands. I wanted to hurt you the way you hurt me. How did I hurt you, Elise? By not making enough money? By not being ambitious enough? By being exactly who I was when you married me? By giving up? By being content with mediocrity? I wanted more, Jack. I wanted a partner who pushed himself, who wanted to grow and succeed. Instead, I got someone who was happy fixing other people's houses while ours fell apart. Our house never fell apart. I maintained it perfectly. I'm not talking about the building. I'm talking about us. I stared at her, this woman I'd loved for so long, and felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just emptiness. You're right, I said. I gave up, but not on success or ambition. I gave up on us because you made it clear that who I was would never be enough. Elise's eyes filled with tears. I didn't mean... Yes, you did. And that's okay. We wanted different things. But what's not okay is what you did after. The vandalism, the gossip, sicking Brandon on me like a attack dog. That was cruel, Elise. That was beneath you. I know, I'm sorry. I pulled out the envelope Rachel had given me and placed it on the coffee table. What's that? Elise asked. Brandon's financial records. Turns out he's been committing fraud. Real estate fraud, tax fraud, marriage fraud. He's married, by the way. Has been the whole time he's been with you. His wife is filing for divorce and pressing charges. Elise stared at the envelope like it was a snake. You're lying. Open it. See for yourself. She did, her hands shaking as she read through the documents. With each page, her face grew paler. Oh my God, she whispered. Oh my God, I'm so stupid. You're not stupid. You're just a bad judge of character. Always have been. I stood up. I came here to give you those documents and to tell you something important. We're done. Completely done. No more games, no more revenge, no more contact. You go your way, I go mine. If you violate that, if you come near me or my property again, I will use every legal tool available to destroy you. Understand? Elise nodded, tears streaming down her face. Good. I'll see myself out. I walked to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, Elise, I hope you find what you're looking for. I really do. Just find it somewhere far away from me. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind. Brandon was arrested on multiple fraud charges and released on bail, only to immediately flee town. His real estate license was revoked, his assets frozen, and his wife was granted full custody of their children. Elise lost her job. The video of Brandon's confession had included his crude comments about her, and her company decided she was a liability. She put the townhouse up for sale and moved back to Massachusetts to live with her sister. My former friends, the ones who'd ghosted me during the divorce, started reaching out again. I ignored most of them. Real friends don't disappear when things get hard. Mick threw a party at the Dead End to celebrate what he called Jack's comeback tour. Half the town showed up, buying me drinks and slapping me on the back. Mrs. Farley gave me a casserole and told me I'd done good. Sid got a recommendation letter from me that helped him get into MIT's engineering program. He deserved it. Detective Harrow stopped by one evening with a 6-pack of beer. Thought you might want some company, he said. We sat on my porch drinking beer and watching the sun set over Millbrook. The town looked peaceful, almost pretty in the golden light. You did good, Jack, Harrow said. Messy, but good. Thanks, though I'm not sure good is the right word. Maybe not, but sometimes good isn't enough. Sometimes you need justice, even if it's rough around the edges. We clinked bottles and drank in comfortable silence. 3 weeks after Lobster Fest, I was working in my garage when a car pulled into the driveway. I didn't recognize it, a rental probably. The driver got out and I felt my stomach drop. It was Brandon. He looked terrible, unshaven, hollow-eyed, his clothes wrinkled. He walked toward me slowly, hands visible, non-threatening. Jack, he said, I know you don't want to see me. I know I'm probably the last person you ever want to talk to, but I need to say something. I set down my wrench, ready to call the police if necessary. Make it quick. I'm sorry for everything. The vandalism, the gossip, all of it. I was trying to impress Elise, trying to be the tough guy she wanted, but I was just being a bully and a criminal. Brandon's voice cracked. I lost everything. My wife, my kids, my career, and I deserved it. But you didn't deserve what I did to you. I studied him, looking for deception. All I saw was a broken man. Apology noted, I said. Now, get off my property before I call Detective Harrow. Brandon nodded. Fair enough. I'm leaving town today. You'll never see me again. I needed you to know I'm sorry." He walked back to his car and drove away. I watched until he disappeared around the corner, then went back to work. Some people say revenge is hollow, that it doesn't bring satisfaction. Those people are wrong. Revenge, done right, is deeply satisfying. It's justice served cold and precise, a mathematical equation that balances the scales. But the best part wasn't the revenge itself. It was what came after, the quiet. No more anxiety about what Elise and Brandon might do next. No more looking over my shoulder. No more feeling like a sufferer. Just peace. Epilogue. The house is quiet. 6 months later, I was doing better than I had in years. My business was thriving. Apparently, being the guy who outsmarted his ex-wife and her criminal boyfriend was good for marketing. People respected someone who stood up for themselves. I'd started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee and conversation with a woman named Lisa who taught at the elementary school. She laughed at my jokes and didn't ask about my ex-wife. It was nice. The house felt like home again. I'd repainted the porch, replaced the mailbox, and installed permanent security cameras that actually worked. Mrs. Farley still watched everything from across the street, but now she waved and smiled instead of cackling. Mick and I played poker every Thursday night. Sid sent postcards from MIT, telling me about his classes and thanking me for believing in him. Detective Harrow stopped by occasionally to drink beer and complain about the mayor. Life was good. Simple, quiet, good. One evening, I was sitting on my porch, watching the sunset when my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Thank you for exposing Brandon. Because of you, I got full custody and he's going to prison. You saved my kids from a monster. Rachel." I smiled and deleted the message. Some thank yous don't need a response. As darkness fell over Millbrook, I lit a cigarette, a habit I'd quit years ago but recently resumed, and thought about everything that had happened. The vandalism, the investigation, the revenge, the fallout. Had it been worth it? Absolutely. Would I do it again? In a heartbeat. Because sometimes the only way to win is to play the game better than your opponents. To be smarter, more patient, more ruthless. To take everything they throw at you and throw it back twice as hard. Elise had wanted to destroy me. Instead, she destroyed herself. Brandon had wanted to humiliate me. Instead, he'd humiliated himself. And I'd wanted peace. And I'd gotten it. The house was finally quiet. The neighborhood was calm. And my soul, battered and bruised but unbroken, was at peace. I took a long drag on my cigarette, exhaled slowly, and watched the smoke drift into the darkening sky. "Game over," I whispered to the empty street. "I win." The porch light flickered, casting long shadows across the yard. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. A car drove past, its headlights sweeping across the house, and Jack Callahan, handyman and survivor, sat in the gathering darkness and smiled.